Alabama to be without one of their top offensive weapons in week one, perhaps longer. How concerned should we be? Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Welcome in our buddy Jimmy Stein, host of Locked On Bama. And Jimmy, not the greatest news you want to hear 2 weeks out from the start of the season. As we found out yesterday, or Sunday rather, Alabama, some unfortunate news coming out of Saturday scrimmage is running back Jam Miller had a procedure Saturday evening to address an upper body injury. Kalen DeBoer speaking Saturday evening into Sunday morning, saying he suffered an upper body injury, went in for a procedure, should recover fully with a timetable for his return yet to be determined. Yet I'm seeing reports from several Alabama folks saying he is absolutely going to miss the week one game at Florida State. We'll see after that. But when you heard the news, Jimmy, what was your initial reaction?
Well, it's bad news for Alabama fans. Jam Miller was the expected starter. He's a returning starter. He's a senior, not coming off a super year. And quite frankly, to be honest, Jam Miller hasn't been fantastic. He's really good, though. He's really good. He's got a 5.1 yard per carry career average, experienced. And really what Jam was bringing to Alabama's group, Chris, is that Alabama's going to throw the ball more in 2025 with Ty Simpson under center. The plan is to throw the ball more. Jam's outstanding at picking up that blitzer, at protecting the quarterback in the backfield. He's also got really good hands. He's made several big plays throughout his career catching the ball. Jam was going to be probably playing the most vital role he's had since he's been at Alabama. He shared the position a year ago with Justice Haynes. And this year he was going to kind of be the alpha of the room, particularly with the change in offense. So this is a blow to Alabama for sure, but Alabama has 6 running backs on scholarship, including Jam, opens opportunities for others. There are other intriguing backs, and it does appear that Jam is highly likely to return prior to the start of conference play. Alabama's 4th game is against Georgia. That's actually in week 5 because there's a bye week after their 3rd game. So I expect, based on what we're hearing, that Jam will be 100% ready to return by Georgia. But it is a blow because this was going to be the leader of the running back room and was well suited to be the back with the changes in this offense.
Yeah, and look, again, I was high on him. I was excited to see what he was going to do this season, and it's interesting because Alabama didn't run the ball as well as maybe we would have liked last season. Jalen Milroe was the rushing offense with 20 rushing touchdowns and over 700 rush yards, but Jam Miller, was close to 700 rush yards, had 7 rushing touchdowns. Justice Haynes out in the portal, he's off to Michigan, so he leaves. And then Richard Young, the young guy, had just 27 carries last season. So whoever it's going to be here, Jimmy, it's going to be somebody with not a ton of experience if they go with Richard Young or maybe one of the other younger guys.
Right. Today, the guess would be Richard Young, a third-year player at Alabama. He was kind of banged up last year. I'm not sure at any point Richard Young was 100%. But of course, he had Jam Miller and Justice Haynes ahead of him. Even if he was 100%, I'm not sure how many more opportunities he would have had. Richard's been good. He was a very highly rated, regarded back. I mean, he showed up with a ton of stars, redshirted in year 1, played last year. I think he's the likely starter, at Florida State going into today. A couple other interesting names, though. Daniel Hill is a true sophomore, played last year. He's from Meridian. Pretty highly regarded guy during the recruiting process. Not as highly regarded as Rich Young or even Jam Miller, but Daniel Hill has been very good for a huge back. This kid's well over 240 pounds. He's a big Derrick Henry looking guy. he has outstanding hands. And with Alabama throwing it more, I think Daniel Hill was really kind of making a move this spring and this fall. He's going to push Rich Young for that start in Tallahassee. Again, the coaches have been pretty knocked out by him. I can't help but think the change in offense has sort of helped Daniel Hill. Another option is Dre Washington. They picked him up out of the transfer portal last winter from Louisiana. He was actually their third back, and you're like, why would Alabama be interested in the third running back at University of Louisiana? Well, he averaged 6.5 yards a carry. He averaged 18 yards reception. He felt he needed a bigger stage. When Alabama took Dre Washington, some of the thinking was, gosh, you seem pretty deep there. Why are you adding a senior back from the portal? Well, now we see why. Running back is a position where there is some injury issues seemingly year after year, and Dre Washington's very likely to get an opportunity in Tallahassee too. So Alabama's going to go down to play Florida State with multiple backs, but no one is proven in the SEC as Jam Miller.
I think we're so much just still unknown, Jimmy, on what this offense is and what it's going to look like, right? I mean, we had Kalen DeBoer last year, and every narrative out of last season was, well, it was a square peg round hole. The mesh with Jalen Milroe just didn't mesh and all this. And now the thought is you're going to get continuity with Ryan Grubb coming in. So I had to go back and look. I was like, okay, 2 years ago at Washington, what did they do? Well, Michael Penix and the quarterbacks threw for 574 passing attempts, rather, as a team, 411 rushing attempts as a team. So a little bit more passing than rushing, but somewhat close to a 50-50 balance there. So, I got to think maybe that's what they want to be this year, but you're right. The talk has been more passing, but you still have to have that complementary run game to go with it.
Oh, no doubt. What I mean by more passing is more passing than last year at Alabama. I think with Jalen Milroe, they sort of build it around what Jalen Milroe did best. It was frustrating for the backs, though, when the primary threat in the run game is the quarterback, and the primary run play call is an option type play where the quarterback has the option to keep it or pitch it or hand it. Jalen Milroe kept it a lot. I think it was very difficult for the backs to get in any sort of a rhythm with Jalen Milroe so dominating the run game. And that's just Alabama doing what Alabama felt it gave them the best chance to win the game, because Milroe was clearly pretty spectacular with the ball in his hands. But it frustrated the backs. One of them even left to go to Michigan, Justice Haynes, and Jam Miller returned. This will be more of a traditional run game. Ty Simpson's athletic. There will still be some zone read stuff in the Ty Simpson offense, but not nearly to the extent they had with Jalen Milroe. So this will be more of a traditional run game. That's what Jam Miller had in high school. That's what Jam had his first year or two on campus in Tuscaloosa. I think Jam was set for a senior season that was going to be a tremendous improvement in production-wise in terms of what we had seen from him in the past. That's why this injury is unfortunate. Again, it could only be 2 or 3 games, and Alabama has sufficient depth. One guy we didn't talk about, we're talking about the depth, and I don't know that we'll see him in Tallahassee. Alabama signed a very highly regarded 5-star back in some circles, A.K. Deere from Quitman, Mississippi. He's a true freshman on this team. He's a big back, showed up about 215 pounds. He had a touchdown in the scrimmage. Now it was 3s against 3s. Can't get too excited there. But A.K. Deere is a guy that could factor in later in the season depth-wise. Alabama's got bodies. They just don't have a senior like Jam Miller who's so well-suited for the changes in offense that we're going to see with Ty Simpson now taking the snaps.
And that's D-E-A-R, Deere. Very unique name. I mean, Deere, Alabama. It could be the headline when he goes off. But it is funny, Jimmy. I mean, it's something we never really had to worry about the last decade plus with Alabama. You always knew, even in times when there were battles, you didn't care who won because you knew whoever was going to win was going to be a stud back. And so it is a kind of a rare time where we're looking at it going, I don't know what the run game's going to look like from Alabama.
Here's a really interesting stat, Chris. If you go all the way back to the beginning of the Saban era and look at career yard per carry number, Jam Miller, if you compare him to all the these are the starting running backs, the number one back at the time. If you look back over their careers, Jam Miller has the lowest career yard per carry number of any of the backs. In fact, tied for last, but with a guy named Brian Robinson, B-Rob, who was the starting running back for Alabama in 2021. He's now the starting running back for the Washington Commanders in the NFL. That shows what an incredible list of backs that Nick Saban was producing, that B-Rob and Jam Miller would be the, quote, least productive of all of the running backs at Alabama since 2008, yet it's a 5.1 yard per carry number, and the other guy's tied with as a starting back in the NFL. So it's been an incredible run at that position for Alabama since the beginning of the Saban era. Alabama likes their depth there. They like the future there, but it might be a little shaky in September. I'd particularly keep your eye on the pass protection and the backs catching the ball in the backfield, because that's really how Jam had separated himself from the other backs in the room during this fall camp.
Yeah, I just had a fantasy draft the other night, and it was, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs. The list goes on, and Brian Robinson. It's a lot of Bama backs in the league. Hey, if you're trying to stay on top of your routine, whether that's working out long days on campus or staying focused through back-to-back classes, hydration is where it starts, and that's where Drip Drop comes in. When you're on top of your hydration, you're going to notice everything works better. Your energy, your mood, your focus, even your skin. But getting enough fluids every day isn't always easy, and that's why you're going to love using Drip Drop. Drip Drop is a doctor-developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. And right now, Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. You just head to dripdrop.com, use our promo code Locked On College. That's dripdrop.com, promo code Locked On College. Get 20% off. Stock up now before that heat hits even harder. You know it's coming. Dripdrop.com. One other guy real quick on the backfield that could have been in the backfield but went elsewhere, and he's going to be starting on the other side for Florida State, right? Roydell Williams. What's that dynamic? And in hindsight, you look back and go, maybe that would have been a guy we'd like to have held on to.
You wonder if Alabama picking up Dre Washington in the portal from Louisiana wasn't a bit of an answer to losing Roydell Williams in the portal had you kept Roydell, and he's still around. Now, Roydell is in a rare 6th year of college football. Last year would have been his final year. He was at Florida State a year ago, was injured very early in the season and got a medical redshirt situation. That's why Roydell is back for a 6th season of college football. He's beloved in Tuscaloosa. It's funny with these transfers, Chris. I'm sure you see this all over the league. Some transfers leave the program and they're still beloved. Roydell is very popular in Tuscaloosa. I think when Florida State's not playing Alabama, you'll see a lot of Alabama fans pull for Roydell to do well. Others maybe aren't quite as beloved because of the circumstances in which they left. Maybe they were a very valuable player that sort of, the perception was they left for money. Those guys aren't quite as popular, but Roydell is. If he wasn't playing against Alabama in week 1, he'd have a lot of Alabama fans in the stands. He won't that particular Saturday. He's a good player too, very physical. In fact, he's sort of a similar player to Jam Miller, but I hope for his sake he's healthy now and has a productive, good 6th season of college football.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you. We're talking about our buddy Jimmy Stein, Locked On Bama. We found out QB1 last week. It was officially announced Ty Simpson, QB1. Not a huge shocker or surprise. I think we talked with you in the spring, Jimmy, and we said, we thought this is what was going to happen. But what'd you make of the decision, and what does this mean for the rest of the guys in that quarterback room?
Yeah, I think it's Ty's command. Let's remember, I know he seems like a new starter. It's a new name for a lot of people that aren't super familiar with Alabama football, but this is year 4 for Ty Simpson. I think he's about as veteran as you can get for a guy who's never started a game at Alabama, but it's his command of the offense. This is a coach's son, and not just a coach's son. Ty's father is a former quarterback himself. He's a former quarterback coach. Now he's the head coach at UT Martin. Ty has that in his, part of Ty's weapons is his mind. He has been immersed in the quarterback position since birth. Now, he was also a 5-star prospect in high school. They don't give you 5 stars because of your intangibles. 5 stars are awarded because of your tangible, the tangible things you bring to the table. Ty's got exceptional arm talent. He's very athletic. He's just a good combination of the intangibles and the tangibles, and he's in year 4. Everything is set up for Ty to do well. He's very efficient in scrimmage on Saturday, completing a huge percentage of his passes. I don't think they're going to ask him to do a lot, but go out and manage the game and win the game. But don't sell his playmaking skills short. He's a heck of an athlete.
And maybe a little bit underrated running ability too, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. I think if it might have been 2023 and it was against one of the, I think the FCS opponent Alabama plays in November, but he had a 78-yard run for a touchdown and dropped the ball. One of those drop the ball at the 1 yard line. So you make SportsCenter. Had he carried the ball all the way through the end zone and scored, that never would have been on SportsCenter, but he was on SportsCenter because he dropped the ball at the 1 yard line in celebration. And as much as people sort of poke fun about that play, it did show what kind of athlete this is. Sure, it's an FCS opponent, but not every quarterback with great arm talent also has a 78-yard touchdown run in his bag. Ty can really run. I think we would be talking about how athletic Ty is if he wasn't replacing Jalen Milroe, who was obviously took athleticism to a new level.
Do you think we see a package for Keelan Russell?
I would be a little surprised if there is a package now. He's a good runner himself. As a matter of fact, in the scrimmage, he made some plays with his legs. I think with Keelan, it's just going to be a matter of what's going to happen at QB2. QB1's been settled. There's still a battle for QB2 between Keelan Russell, the true freshman, and Austin Mack, a redshirt sophomore that's been in the DeBoer system for all 3 years. He came with DeBoer from Washington. That's sort of a battle, and we'll see. I think how much Keelan plays is going to be based on, does he overtake Austin Mack before the end of the year? Now, Keelan has been impressive. No one in Tuscaloosa is disappointed with what they've seen from Keelan Russell. Ty was just going to be very difficult to overtake because of his years of experience and his maturity. But again, his underrated arsenal of athletic ability.
Last thing, Jimmy, we are a week and a half away from the opener. It'll be Alabama at Florida State a week from this Saturday. I'm just looking at the FanDuel line, still sitting at Bama minus 13.5. So it's been about 2 touchdowns much of this offseason. Any reason to change that with the Jam Miller news, or are you sticking with that line?
I don't think so. I think if I'm picking the outcome of the game, it wouldn't be affected by the loss of Jam Miller, though I reserve the right to change my mind if another back gets dinged up. It's kind of funny how in football this tends to kind of all happen at one position, where one guy gets hurt and you're like, oh, well, you can survive that. But then another guy gets hurt at the same spot. Then it becomes a problem. But as of right now, based on opponent, based on being early in the season, I think Alabama will be fine with Richard Young as the starting back, who, by the way, will be returning to his home state. He's originally from Florida. I'm sure he'd be excited to get a shot at his home state Seminoles. But no, I like Alabama in the game at Florida State, but I don't think you're going to see a 2-10 Florida State team play that day. I think this is going to be very similar to an SEC environment and playing against a team that features a lot of athletes that could play in the SEC. I like Alabama to win. I like where that line is, but I anticipate Alabama winning somewhere around the point spread.
Jimmy, just talking about it, I'm getting fired up knowing it's that close to happening, that college football is here. It's officially week 0 game week, so take that for what you will. It's a terrible slate this Saturday, but at least college football is back. Always appreciate your time and insight, Jimmy. Of course, check him out with Luke Robinson over there at Locked On Bama, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon, man. Really appreciate it.
Sounds great, Chris.
All right, more Locked On SEC coming your way right after this. Hey, have you guys ever decided to head to a ball game at the last minute with friends or family? Maybe it's on game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That is where Game Time comes in. Game Time is the easiest way for you to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you're going to have some extra cash to splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group of friends to come with you. Game Time is going to make it possible. Game Time, they make buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the Game Time app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've even got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee as going to take the worry out of buying. Seat views, to me, the best perspective on the app. You can check out before you buy what your view is going to look like, so you know exactly where you'll be in the stadium and seeing what that view is going to be. Take the guesswork out of buying ticket with Game Time. You can download the Game Time app today, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege, get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, Get $20 off if you've never used them before. Download Game Time today. It is last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, we're along here, Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Appreciate Jimmy for joining us, talking all things about Alabama and, of course, Jam Miller. And some more clarity coming out as Jam Miller reportedly suffered a collarbone injury. That was from On3 Sports, out indefinitely, saying Alabama hopeful they can get him back by the Georgia game on September 27th. Richard Young and Daniel Hill expected to fill in for him. Now, former NFL doc David Chow tweeted out, "Not impossible. I did surgery on an NFL running back's clavicle fracture, and he returned in under 6 weeks." So some positive news there for Alabama fans, perhaps, but we shall see. Now, the other big news to happen Sunday evening, talk about a Sunday news dump. We got news that Joey Aguilar has been named the Tennessee starting quarterback over in Knoxville. Tennessee naming Aguilar their starting quarterback for this season. He earned the starting nod over redshirt freshman Jake Merklinger and true freshman George McIntyre. Aguilar has had a crazy offseason. If you remember, he was at App State, transferred to UCLA, was going to compete for that starting job at UCLA, and then suddenly Tennessee kicked Nico Iamaleava to the curb. Nico, very quickly decided he was going to transfer to UCLA. So Aguilar said, "I'm not staying here. I'm going to go elsewhere." And they basically did a swap. It was almost like a trade. Aguilar spent 2 seasons at App State, and his 2 seasons there, passing for over 6,700 yards, 56 touchdowns, and 24 picks, and showed some versatility as well with his legs. Over 400 rushing yards on the ground, 5 rushing touchdowns. But look, it was pretty easy to guess. I mean, he comes in as the most seasoned quarterback on that roster at Tennessee. The question is it going to translate, right? I mean, it's one thing to do it at App State. It's even another thing to go do it at UCLA. I mean, they were going to have low expectations anyway for this season. The Bruins were 6-6. They would have been celebrating a bowl game. It would have been a step forward and an improvement for them. But Tennessee, that's a program coming off a playoff appearance. Granted, they got blown out at Ohio State, but nonetheless, a 10-win team from a year ago made it to the playoffs, and you're in the big bad SEC. And Josh Heupel has had a great track record of working with quarterbacks, and obviously the future still looks bright with Merklinger and George McIntyre and those guys. But this season, it is all about, can Aguilar execute the offense? And, again, this past season, Tennessee won double-digit games for the second time in the last 3 years, and they understand they're going to take a little bit of a step back from where they were last year. You lose James Pierce, a lot of those pieces on defense, but Josh Heupel's offense is ranked in the top 20 total yards per game in each of his 4 seasons in Knoxville, including when the Vols had a FBS leading 525 yards per game back in 2022. So with Joey Aguilar taking over now, it's kind of like, hey, man, we're going to give you a little bit of a pass from a standpoint of we know it's not going to be as good as, was perhaps the past couple of years. And, look, I know some Tennessee fans will disparage Nico and say, oh, he wasn't that good to begin with. I thought the arrow was pointing upward. Like, I thought it had everything settled down without asking for more money and all that stuff. Had Nico just stuck it out there, like I would have been picking him when we're talking about these guys that were expected to take a big leap or big step forward this year. Jackson Arnold, you're going to take a step forward at Auburn. I would have been picking Nico Iamaleava to take a step forward at Tennessee and another year in that program and all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, that's not how it worked out. But, Joey Aguilar, it is your show now. And we're going to find out very quickly. It's a good Syracuse team that they're going to get in the opener on a neutral field. Then they'll come back home, get East Tennessee State, and then it's Georgia in week 3. Top 5 Georgia. So to me, it's all about Joey Aguilar. Can he do the basics, right? Can he not make the big mistake? Can he execute? Can he get the ball into the hands of the Tennessee playmakers? And can they run the football? Obviously, everybody's saying, oh, Dylan Sampson gone. Can you run it effectively with who you have there? Kirk Herbstreit, I was reading a piece from what he had said earlier this offseason where he said Josh Heupel puts the quarterback in a spot to be successful with the system that they run. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Joey Aguilar do that. He said he's going with, I don't want to say nothing to lose, but the expectations are always high at Tennessee, but they're going to be in his corner. That fan base is going to be in his corner after Nico left the way he did. So, again, I've been saying this about Josh Heupel all offseason. All the Tennessee fans were in his corner saying, we agree with you in this move and getting rid of Nico. But if it doesn't, if it's a massive step back, if it's, oh God, what did we do? We kicked the best quarterback on our roster out, and we're bringing in this Aguilar kid, and he's not going to be as good. It's certainly it's going to be a tough one for Tennessee fans, no doubt. So again, can Aguilar do what needs to be done? We're going to find out very quickly because, like I said, Syracuse, Fran Brown is a good head coach. They're going to give Tennessee everything it can handle. But I just like the pedigree of this Tennessee team. I do think that they have a chance to, because of how the schedule sets up, possibly get back to 10-2 again and be a playoff team again. The questions are, if I could know these questions right now, that Mike Matthews takes a monster leap as a sophomore and, establishes himself as the number one go-to target. Chris Brazzell becomes that true deep threat that you really wanted, that can stretch the field. Again, Joey Aguilar, all eyes are on him, and unfortunately, that's where Tennessee's success this season is going to be determined by a lot of people out there. But success on the field will be measured by fewer mistakes, in my mind, by Joey Aguilar. So there you have it. That is the latest going on there in Knoxville, and we wish Tennessee fans and the Vols the best of luck. All right, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Our thanks again to Jimmy Stein for joining us to talk all things Bama. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show with Brian Smith, all the latest rumors and signings all across college football. Find the Portal wherever you find your podcasts. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.